Hello and welcome to the Dream Team Professor podcast. My name is Scott, and in this episode, we're looking at the top players to target in Gameweek 24 Sun Dream Team. It's a small double game week this week with just three teams doubling. So we've got Manchester City, Liverpool, and Aston Villa this double game week. But we're going to have one eye on Game Week 25 because that's a double where all Premier League teams play twice. So as well as looking at Game Week 24 this week, I think we're going to discuss 25 a little bit as well. So those midweek games, obviously Premier League only at the weekend, and it's Friday deadline as well. So don't get caught out by that. 6:30 p.m. But weekend Premier League matches. Midweek we've got City, who are 3-2 down, having their second leg against Real Madrid. That one's away, and then we've got Villa versus Liverpool in that rearranged Premier League fixture. And just for context, I'm recording this on Wednesday before the Everton-Liverpool match. So we probably will know by the end of this episode how that match goes, but I am recording it beforehand. So all teams doubling Game Week 25, meaning that will be back-to-back doubles for City, Liverpool and Villa. So if you do want to target the fixtures, that's probably the way to go. But Arsenal do have a good single game week against Leicester. Apart from we found out that Havertz is out for the season, so no real attackers for Arsenal at the minute. You've also got United, Spurs, Chelsea, Newcastle, all sort of toughish singles this week. So there really isn't that much to choose from if you are targeting singles. The ones that have sort of shown up really could be Palace, Bournemouth, Brentford. If you do want to move early before targeting those Game Week 25 matches. But ideally, I still think targeting fixture gain is the way to go. So let's look at some of the teams that are doubling first. So we've got Man City. They're home to Newcastle in the first fixture and then away to Real Madrid. So two tough fixtures. But they do have one over most teams this week, and you're pretty sure that they are going to go strong in both of those matches. So you get the benefit of the extra games, but I think the real downside is the difficulty of the games that they've got to play. They also are still in the FA Cup, and they've had a pretty nice draw against Plymouth, or maybe not a nice draw after they've knocked out Liverpool. But overall, I think it looks like they're probably going to go fairly far in the FA Cup. So there will be plenty of fixtures still to come for Manchester City. Liverpool, home Wolves, and then away Aston Villa. So Wolves, really nice fixture to target, but Villa away, maybe a little bit tougher. But then at the minute, Villa have got quite a few defensive problems themselves, so may still be okay for Liverpool. I would expect them to win. And then that's followed up in Game Week 25 with City and Newcastle. So it's not looking ideal for Liverpool players after that. The fixtures are tough. And then they've been knocked out of the FA Cup now. So not as many fixtures as we would have expected. But again, still in Europe, even though it's not showing currently on Game Week 26. As soon as we know who goes through in the playoff rounds, those 26 fixtures will be added for Europe. So that's one thing to look at if you're looking on FF Staff or if you're looking on the Dream Team app. Those European matches in 26 won't get added until the playoff rounds have been taken place. Aston Villa, so their double is home Ipswich and home Liverpool. So that first fixture looks like one that you really would want to target. Not so much the Liverpool game, but Aston Villa are one of those teams that can get results at home against the big sides. They've done it against my team, Arsenal, on plenty of occasions. So I think two fixtures are quite nice to target. And looking a little bit longer term for Aston Villa, they've got plenty of games still to come. So pretty much 4 doubles in a row now. They've got the Premier League this week. They've got the Premier League the week after. They've got the FA Cup that's going to be paired with Europe. And then they'll have Premier League, which is going to be paired with the second leg of Europe. So if you do go the Aston Villa route, you're going to have plenty of fixtures still to come for them. So overall, I still think I would be targeting those double game week players. But if we look at some of those singles I mentioned, so Palace versus Everton at home. So if you wanted to jump on Palace a little bit early, you've got an okay fixture this week against Everton. And then in Game Week 25, it's Fulham away, Aston Villa at home. So not a bad double. Eze, we're not quite sure about his fitness at the moment, but you look at the likes of Mateta or Munoz that could be fairly good to target. You've also got that Millwall match in Game Week 26, and we know that they go pretty strong in the FA Cup. So that could be one to look at. You've also got Bournemouth versus Southampton away from home. Now, Bournemouth scoring plenty of goals, looking really, really dangerous. And I think people are going to have their eye on Bournemouth players for Game Week 25. Wolves and Brighton looks nice. And then they face Wolves again in the FA Cup. So they've progressed to the next round and they won't blank in Game Week 26. Brentford, on the other hand, they do have West Ham in a single. They have a really nice double game week in Game Week 25 of Leicester away and Everton. But the downside on Brentford is they aren't in the FA Cup anymore, so they will blank in Game Week 26. So if you are looking to jump on Brentford to try and take advantage of the double, you will have to have a plan in place to get rid of them for that blank in Game Week 26. Let's have a look at Manchester City to target. So back-to-back doubles, Game Week 24 and 25, albeit tough doubles. Newcastle, Real Madrid, followed by Liverpool and Tottenham in Game Week 25. Does look pretty tough. And then Game Week 26, Plymouth, I'm guessing it's going to be quite a lot of rotation again if it's paired with a European fixture. Now, if they do end up going out and they are already behind against Real Madrid, maybe that Plymouth game at home could end up being a little bit stronger. So that is something we're going to have to keep an eye on once we know how the Champions League pans out. Erling Haaland, not often we have to say to target Erling Haaland, but a lot of people had removed him for the last couple of game weeks. Quite a few people brought him back this week, and I think they'll be happy with their decision. I wasn't one of those people, so I went against Haaland for the previous game week of Arsenal in the single, and then Real Madrid in a single this week. I assumed he wouldn't play in the FA Cup, and he didn't. But he went on to score 2 goals against Real Madrid, and it wasn't a very comfortable watch, to be honest. He hit the crossbar as well, and he did look really, really good. So that, on top of his goal against Arsenal, has given him sort of 25 points and 3 goals in what looked like 2 of the hardest games of his season. So he's done really, really well across those 2. And then, like me, a lot of us are going to be scrambling to get him back in our sides. 7 returns in his last 6 matches, blanking just once in that time. I don't fancy taking it on now in Game Week 24 for Newcastle and Real Madrid, and Game Week 25, Liverpool and Spurs. They do look like tough fixtures, but he's just shown in these last couple of game weeks that he can still do it in the big games. So Haaland coming back in feels like a sensible decision. 27 goals now for the season. Phil Foden was a strange one this week, so didn't start the FA Cup, and then was a surprise benching for Real Madrid. We would have all had him down, I think, to start that Real Madrid game, but he started on the bench. Jack Grealish started the game, but picked up an injury himself, and then Foden ended up coming on after 30 minutes. Jack Grealish actually had a pretty good game against Orient, played a nice ball over the top for the KDB goal. And I kind of said when I saw the lineup that, he's only ended up getting a place in this Champions League match because of that assist. Well, he went on to do pretty much the same thing to Vardiol, who passed on to Haaland. So Grealish was actually looking quite good in those early stages. But Foden came on, won the pen, and I won't be removing Phil Foden for this period. We'll have to keep an eye and make sure that he is still sort of part of the starting lineup. I imagine it was just a tactical tweak. But 10 goals, 6 assists for the season, I think is a hold for this. Savinho is an interesting one. So had a strong game week. So 2 starts this week and close to 90 in both. 12 points across the 2 matches. No attacking returns, but he got strong bonus points. He got tackles in both. And he should have really had an assist or even assists in that match against Orient. So Savinho looking a good option. And then Vardiol as well at the back. So 7th attacking return of the season with that assist against Real Madrid. 6 points. I expect he's going to start 4 of these next games, or the next 4 games with Newcastle, Real Madrid. He's in the starting lineup. Liverpool, Spurs, again, I think he'll play. And then that Plymouth one is maybe the one that will be decided once we know what happens in Europe. So I still think he's a decent option, but you are targeting those attacking returns. The City's defence just looks so poor at the minute. And then one, not so much to target, but I just want to talk about Marmoush. So if you've been following on Twitter or my short YouTube posts, I bought Marmoush in this game week as a punt, not very much like me. And I gave him the armband because I just had a feeling that he was going to start that Orient match. And I thought that could be a really, really high ceiling game. And I was thinking about, do I bring Haaland in a week early or go for Marmoush as a punt? And I felt like it was a big enough differential that it could pay off. Now, if you'd have told me that Marmoush was going to get the 90 against Orient, I think I probably would have done it again. But it just didn't quite pay off. So 3 shots on target and just the 6 points against Orient doubled to 12. And then just a sub appearance in the Real Madrid game. So really didn't pay off for me. I think I'll climb to about 44th after I had my captain play and most of my team play. But last night, I jumped all the way back up to about 70th. So I'll do my team update at the end. But just to say on Marmoush, I think it's one just to keep an eye on. So obviously not starting the Real Madrid game, I don't think we can say he's reliable for 2 matches a week. But if he does carry on getting starts in this period and then that Plymouth game is around the corner, maybe, just maybe I'll take the punt again. We'll have to wait and see. But at the minute, it's a wait and see on Marmoush. It definitely isn't a buy. Let's look at Liverpool next. So, like I mentioned, Everton match still to play. So a lot of this could probably change. There's just not enough time to put these podcasts in and around the games because the games just come thick and fast all through the week. So we have to go with it as it is. So Everton still to play. Double game week this week of Wolves and Aston Villa, followed by a double game week in 25 of City and Newcastle. And then 26, there will be a Europe fixture panned in there, but only once we know who makes it through the playoffs. So Salah, I think, is the standout captain this week. So Wolves at home, Aston Villa away. I've obviously not captained him tonight, so I'm hoping that it's a little bit of a quiet one, but I've got a bad feeling about it. But looking at this one, Wolves at home, Aston Villa away, I think this just screams Salah captaincy, to be honest. So I think probably that's a safe play this week. And then maybe we start taking punts again in game week 25 when he's got City away and Newcastle at home. Gakpo got his full rest as well, like Salah in the Plymouth game. I'm expecting him to start probably 3 of the next 4, just as long as nothing crazy happens this evening. But he is 70% in the top 1K, so I don't think there's many gains to be made there. Trent versus Bradley. I've seen leaks that Connor Bradley is starting this evening, and I think Trent should be on the bench. So we'll have more information after this video comes out. But my first impression from that is probably Trent is a hold. If he's fit enough to be on the bench, he's probably going to be starting anytime soon. And then Bradley, probably don't buy him for now. And we'll have to wait and see what the sort of minutes are like this evening. But I'm thinking that Bradley's probably a sell now and Trent's a hold. Virgil van Dijk still a fine buy, all being well after the Everton match. But this guy, we really are going to have to see how this evening goes because he has been so frustrating. So Luis Diaz started the Plymouth game. I see people actually captaining him, which if you knew again that he was going to get 90 minutes in Plymouth, you'd think that's going to be a great one to target. But just a 2-pointer again. I think it could be time to sell Luis Diaz unless he does something dramatic this evening. So I was looking at it this way. So I've got Kulusevski and Bruno this week as my single game week players, and Diaz has a double. But if he only ends up sort of starting 1 match a week, I know he is due to start again this evening. But if he is only going to be starting 1 game a week and he's performing much below the standards of the guys like Bruno and Kulusevski, could there be an argument that you just take him out? We'll have to wait and see how he does this evening. But if he does blank against Everton this evening, that's going to be 10 matches now without an attacking return. So he very much is on the chopping block. But maybe after this comes out, we might have seen that Diaz hat-trick, a bit like Leverkusen. We'll have to wait and see. But at the minute, I'm losing patience with him. And then Alisson. So if budget is no issue, he could be a decent enough keeper now. So no FA Cup. They've got the Carabao Cup final. Do they call on Alisson for that one? I'm not sure. It might be harsh on Kelleher. But there's still going to be plenty of Premier League matches and European matches that Alisson will take part in. So I think he's an okay buy. Just make sure you've got the budget for everyone that you need in Game Week 25 if you are to go there. Up next, we've got Aston Villa. So one of the other few teams to double next week. And like I said, they've got plenty of games coming. So double in 24, Ipswich and Liverpool, both at home. Chelsea at home, Crystal Palace away in 25. And then Gameweek 26, they've been drawn against Cardiff at home. So a pretty nice draw. And then that will be paired with a European fixture as well. So plenty of games to come for Villa. If you do target them for this week, there is a very good chance that you're probably going to end up hanging on to them. So Rodgers, I'm expecting that he's going to probably be one of the most transferred in players this week. Probably was going to be anyway, even before his goal and assist against Spurs. So 14 points in that match. And he's just got that, I don't know what it is, that knack of being in the right place at the right time. So scored so many of those sort of tap-ins in the area, and just having a really good season. 11 goals, 7 assists, and he's Villa's highest scoring player over the last 4 weeks. So I think he's a pretty straightforward move this week. If Ollie Watkins was fit, that could be a really nice punt for this week, but I think he's still a doubt. I haven't heard anything yet. We will hear more before the deadline. But I'd just be a bit cautious now at this point, because even if he is returning, is he going to start both games in the double? And if he does start both games in the double, what kind of minutes is he going to get if he's not fully recovered? So I'd be a little bit cautious, but 11 goals, 11 assists, a decent shout. And then is Ramsey going under the radar a little bit? So he's at double figures in 3 of his last 4 matches, 2 goals, 2 assists in that time. But I'm just looking at it. He's not a better option than Morgan Rodgers, is he? I don't really see much of the benefit to go for him over Rodgers. So also with the competition of the new signings, you've got Rashford, Marlon, Asensio all coming in. I feel like it could be a little bit more risky than going for Rodgers. He seems to be a nailed-on option. I like Tielemans. Again, it's consistency. So like bonus points, tackles. I looked back and he's only scored less than 4 points twice in 10 games. And he's got 90 minutes in all of those matches, bar one. And in that one, he got 83 minutes. So if you're looking for someone consistent, plenty of minutes, I think Tielemans a good shout. But again, is he better than Morgan Rodgers as a shout? I'm not so sure. And then defence. I think defence is a little bit of an issue. So they started with Garcia as the right back, Digne left back. They've got Kamara from midfield dropping into centre back. And then Ezri Konsa went off injured as well. So really having a tough time at the back with Mings and Torres out, but close to returning. And then you've got Matty Cash out injured as well. And you have got Disasi to still come in. But I just wouldn't want to mess with that defence. So I think the best way to do it is to go for Martinez if you want a piece of that. Plenty of fixtures coming up for the goalkeeper. Then look at my team, Arsenal, and since making this slide, I'm feeling a lot worse since hearing about the Havertz injury being out for the season. It's a favourable single game week against Leicester away from home. Arsenal have just been on a trip to Dubai, which should have been a refreshing experience where everyone comes back nice and well, but we've now got Martinelli out injured and Kai Havertz out injured for the season, so it's not looking good. I think our only fit options up top are now Nwaneri, Sterling and Trossard, so it really isn't looking good. If you do want to go for an option from Arsenal, I think the best shout now is Declan Rice. So on FF stuff, you can have a look at player total points, you can set the duration of time you want to compare. And I was just looking over the last 6 game weeks. So bear in mind, Arsenal have had 1 blank last week in that time as well. Declan Rice is the 5th highest scoring midfielder across the last 6 game weeks, even with that blank included. 3 goals, 7 assists for the season, 33 bonus points, 6th highest in the game for bonus. And he's also 3rd for big chances created, taking those corners. So a real steady point scorer. I'm just a little less keen on all Arsenal players now, though. It just, maybe it won't sort of reflect on the pitch, but it feels like a real massive blow having Havertz out for the season. A lot of people talking about it being a sort of write-off of the season. If you are still feeling positive, Nwaneri at 1.9 is now likely to play every game, and he's been sort of, really impressive this season when called upon. So 7 goals for the season, but I just don't know how affected Arsenal's attack will be. I just don't see it functioning in the same way. So I think it is a big risk. And do we really need the budget enablers at this point of the season? I think Gabriel, Raya, still solid options, but I just think you can get the extra fixtures now from elsewhere. So if you compare sort of Arsenal's run to City's, you can gain extra fixtures from Vardiol with the extra game this week. Same amount of fixtures in Gameweek 25, but then potential for an FA Cup fixture in Gameweek 26 for Vardiol. I don't know if he'll play or not. And then comparing Raya to Martinez, Martinez has got all of those doubles in a row, whereas Arsenal out of the FA Cup and don't have a double game week this week. So I still think there are better options at the minute. I think I'd wait until game week 25 now for Arsenal, see how they get on against Leicester. Manchester United, so not really much to add from United. It's a single game week against Spurs. But then the fixtures are quite nice after that. So game week 25 is a double against Everton and Ipswich at home, which looks like one of the better doubles that game week. And then game week 26, Fulham at home in the FA Cup will be paired with a European fixture once it's announced. So I think the fixtures look good. And someone like Bruno Fernandes is so consistent that I would just hold him for this period. You know that he's going to start all of the games. You don't have the rotation risk. And I think comparing him to some of the other options, I just think he's got everything going for him still with the sort of penalties, set pieces. And you just have to look at the graphic I've got up on the screen there. Really, really consistent point scorer. Only really 2 blanks in since the last, from game week 18. So I still think Bruno, really, really good pick. Arguably even could be a differential captain in game week 25. But I'm not that infused by any of the other options by for Manchester United. So Dalot, Mazraoui, sort of 2.9 million, 2.7 million. If you're really struggling for budget, you could go there. The fixtures are okay, but I'm still not that confident in the United defence. Quick look at Spurs. So not doing well in the form table at the moment. It's back-to-back losses, 3 losses in their last 5. They're now out of the FA Cup. They're out of the Carabao Cup. They do still have Europe in game week 26 once that one's been drawn, but who knows how long they'll be in there still. I think the single against United looks fine. I'm finding that one really hard to call, but I still think for the likes of Porro, Kulusevski, could still be an okay game. Game week 25, Ipswich and Manchester City. So a bit of a mixed bag, but they do tend to get a result against City somehow. Ipswich away. Should be a fixture that they win, but with the injuries they've got, again, it could still be challenging. I think Porro is a hold. He's had his rest in the Carabao Cup. He's now probably going to start the bulk of games. He's the second highest scoring defender on the game. So 2 goals, 8 assists. I'd still classify him as a buy if you don't have him. Kulusevski, now I mentioned, could be moved with a single game week fixture against Man United, but he's been so reliable this season. 10-point assist against Villa. That was his 20th attack and return of the season. 9 goals, 11 assists for the season. And I'm just comparing, and again, maybe Diaz does really well this evening, and I change my thinking, but I shouldn't really let one game change my thinking. And looking at the fixture run and Diaz compared to Kulusevski, I feel like Kulusevski, I can rely on him much more for points at the moment than Luis Diaz. So that is something to consider, whether you want to take out a player as reliable as Kulusevski to play the fixtures. Kinski is a difficult one. I'm ready to admit defeat or admit I wasn't quite right on Kinski, because after seeing him in those first couple of games, I actually thought he looked really solid. But since then, his performances have struggled a bit. Now, it's not entirely his fault. The defence that Spurs have been putting out is pretty makeshift, and he's a young defender, young keeper coming into a new league. But he's made some real big errors in the last few games, especially that most recent one against Aston Villa. And to add to that, he's now been left out of the European squad. So myself and Ben were chatting on the Tonic podcast earlier in the week. And even before that, we were trying to dig in and find out, was Kinski going to be fine to play in Europe? Turned out he was. But he's now not been put in the squad. So basically, where they've got so many injuries at the back, they've given the places to Jed Spence, who wasn't registered already, Danso, the new signing, and they've added their new striker or attacker, Tell, to the squad in place, which means no room for Kinski. So Vicario and I think Austin might be the keepers now for Europe. So Kinski only has the possibility to play in Prem games, which means I'd probably sell him if I had no other fires. It's not the end of the world if you have to keep hold of him, but you're not going to get the extra games. So I'd be looking to probably move on to Martinez if I had the chance. Jed Spence at 2.7. Now, his returns have been pretty solid. 4.2 average, 18 bonus from his last 17 games. And I'd say he's a little bit of a Porro light. He seems to get the attacking returns. He seems to do really well for bonus. So in this game against Aston Villa, he finished on 3 bonus, 9 ppm. And he just seems like one of these defenders that doesn't blank even when they concede. So I think if you're comparing Spence, Mazraoui, Delot, you're probably going to get more chance of clean sheets out of Mazraoui and Delot. But Spence might get you those attacking returns and bonus a little bit more frequently. So that's just something to consider. Let's look at Chelsea. So the main question with Chelsea is it worth going early on Cole Palmer? Now, Game Week 24 is a Brighton away fixture. But Game Week 25 is the one where I think we're all going to want Cole Palmer. So Aston Villa away and Southampton at home. I think most want him for that. And arguably looking at those fixtures, he could even be a really good captaincy shout for Game Week 25. He's been added to the European squad for Game Week 26. So he can play in Europe. It doesn't necessarily mean he will. Now, let me know in the comments if you think that Cole Palmer is going to be playing regularly now in the Europa Conference League. I would like to see it before banking on him. But if he's in for Game Week 25, I guess you just hold him for 26 and hope that he gets Europe. So I think that if I did bring him in for 25, I probably would end up keeping him. But I'm just not entirely certain they are going to start him. Maybe they start to play him as the team gets a little bit nearer to the final. I think they will go all the way in that competition. But looking at the recent points for Palmer, if we're deciding whether to bring him in early or not. So Brighton away next. Scored 4 goals against them earlier in the season, but just an assist in that last match against them in the FA Cup. But looking over the last 6 game weeks, he's actually the 20th best midfielder over the last 6 game weeks. Now, part of that probably is going to be he hasn't been playing as many extra fixtures as everyone else. But if you look at the graphic I've got on screen, there are a lot of sort of 4-pointers, 6-pointers, not as high scoring in every game as we sort of see from some of the other big hitters like Haaland, Salah, for example. He's got a 13-pointer, 10, 14. We know he has got that high ceiling, but I don't think he has been hitting it as regularly over the last couple of game weeks. But we still have to respect him. 3rd highest scoring player in the game, even without Europe and without playing most of the cup games. He did come in for that FA Cup match against Brighton. So I think he is a buy for Game Week 25. I'm not that convinced about bringing him in for 24 myself currently. I think the only real benefit of bringing him in early is if you're planning your team for Game Week 25 and there's like 4 people that you want to bring in for that game week. If you're going to move early on any player, I think Cole Palmer is probably going to be the more reliable one to do it for. So kind of depends on what your plans are for Game Week 25. A quick look at some other single game week sides. So Bournemouth, and I think it's going to be a similar scenario to what we've just discussed with Cole Palmer. So Game Week 24 is a Southampton single away from home. Game Week 25, Wolves and Brighton. Now that looks like a really nice double game week to target. And then they have a FA Cup match of Wolves in Game Week 26. So if you do have a player for Game Week 25, a lot of teams will single in Game Week 26. So hold in for that one in the likes of Kluivert or Semenyo from Bournemouth could be a shout as well. It's a similar question, though, with Cole Palmer and with Mbumo, who I'm also going to talk about in the next slide. Do you get them in early or do you wait for Game Week 25? I think that Southampton fixture for Bournemouth is the one that's tempting. If you are going to do it, you want a really good single game week. And the form Bournemouth have been in, I think Southampton does look very, very appealing. If it is between Kluivert and Semenyo, I think you've got to opt for the penalty taker in Kluivert, but both have been impressive. So that chart that I got up on the screen again, top scoring midfielders over the last 6 game weeks. You've got Kluivert top of the list with 74 points. Now, he's had a couple of hat-tricks recently, so that is boosted right up, but they all count. He scored them. He deserves to be up there. And then Semenyo is actually 3rd on the list. So two Bournemouth players in the top rankings for midfielders over the last 6 game weeks is really, really impressive. And I think over this period, looking at that, I think they're going to go full strength in all of those games. So I think Clivert, a really, really good option. Semenyo also, but I'd opt for the penalty taker if I was going there. 12 goals, 5 assists for Clivert. Let's look at Brentford. Now, similar situation with Brian and Bumo. I don't think there's many other players from Brentford that players are going to be targeting. So they've got West Ham in an away single this week. Now, if you compare that to the single of Bournemouth playing Southampton, I think it's fair to say Southampton have got the better fixture there. But game week 25, Leicester away and Everton home. I think Brentford probably have the better double game week in game week 25. So if I was planning to get both, I'd probably go for the likes of Palmer first or Clivert first for game week 24, and then bring Mbumo in for 25. I don't think it's necessarily worth going early for Mbumo to play against West Ham. I think they've looked pretty good under Potter recently, West Ham. But the downside of Mbumo for 25 is you will have to move him on in 26 because he doesn't have a fixture in game week 26. There's obviously no European fixture and they're not in the FA Cup as well. So very, very tempting to do Mbumo for game week 25, but you just have to bear in mind that you are going to want to sell him after that, which I think makes him a good option potentially for 12th man if you have got that available. You could 12th man him in for game week 25, and then you don't have to use an extra transfer to take him out. Could be a way of playing it. But I do think he is a good option to have for that one. On penalties, and over the last 3 game weeks, a 7.3 average, even though he's only scored 1 goal in that period because he's doing well for bonus. He's having plenty of shots on target. 14 goals, 4 assists for the season. He's having a really, really good season. Last of the single game week sides for this week, and we've got a really, really good option here. So Daniel Munoz, could he be a season-long hold for Crystal Palace? Now, he's no surprise for anyone. I've seen a lot of teams with him in, especially over the double game weeks, but I've seen people holding him as well now over this period, and he's been really, really good. So fair play if you backed him early. He's up to 4.9 million now, which is mental really for a Palace player, but he deserves to be there. He's at the top of the defensive scoring for the last 6 game weeks with 71 points, the highest scoring defender over that period. So 8.9 average if you average that down over the last 6. He's only blanked twice since game week 10, so he always gets tackles without foul, usually gets a shot on target or big chance created in every game. And his attacking returns aren't bad either. So 3 goals, 5 assists for the season. And if you just watch any of their games, he's basically a forward. He isn't a defender. So I think he's a really, really good shout. But the reason I'm saying could he sort of be a season-long hold or even a longer-term hold, even though he's got less fixtures. Now, if you look at his next 3 game weeks, game week 24 to 26, he'll have Everton, Fulham, Villa, Millwall. So 4 matches in that period. If you're looking at bringing in, say, Gabriel back after the blank, he's got Leicester, West Ham, Forest, and then a European fixture. You'd imagine that European fixture is going to be quite challenging. I think Forest, pretty challenging as well. I think that Munoz is probably looking a better option and has better fixtures than going for Gabriel over that period. And then even if you compare it to Liverpool as well, so Wolves, Villa, Man City, Newcastle, and then they have an extra fixture, so a European fixture for them as well. So you would gain 1 extra fixture from Liverpool, but unless it's Virgil van Dijk, I don't think you can be guaranteed to play all 5 fixtures. So arguably, you could have the same amount of fixtures as Munoz, or even if you are Virgil van Dijk, do you think Virgil van Dijk scores as many points as Munoz in those 5 than Munoz is 4? I think Munoz is looking like he could outscore him even with the extra fixture. So I think, especially up to game week 6, Munoz looks a decent shout, maybe even 27. But then in game week 28, Munoz does have a blank. It clashes with the Carabao Cup final. So you may want to remove him there. But then after the blank, he has a double if they get through to the FA Cup quarter-final beating Millwall. That'll be paired with a Premier League match. So there's every chance that if they do beat Millwall, the fixture you'd lose in 28, you'd gain in 29 almost. So that's what I'm thinking. Could Munoz actually be a pretty good long-term hold? I think it's something to think about. It's been very, very impressive. Quickly look at captaincy and boosters. So I think it's a pretty straightforward one this week. So captaincy, I think it's going to be a straight shootout between Salah and Haaland. Haaland is looking in great form. He's just done it against two top teams, Arsenal and Real Madrid. 7 returns in his last 6. So it's fair to say Haaland is fully back in form. But Salah, you'd have to say, has the better fixture when you compare, or fixtures when you compare. So Newcastle, Real Madrid for Haaland, Wolves and Aston Villa for Liverpool. Now, the Wolves fixture, I think, is much better than the Newcastle one, both at home. And then you compare Real Madrid away to Aston Villa away. Real Madrid is clearly the harder fixture. But with a depleted Aston Villa defence on top of that, I think it sort of clears a pathway for Salah, in my opinion. So I think Salah, safest option. But if you are chasing and you want to go different, Haaland's not a bad differential, is he? As I found out this week. So, yeah, either of those two, I don't think you can go far wrong. Watkins would have been a nice alternative, I think, if we knew that he was going to be fully fit for Ipswich and Liverpool. But I just don't think we've got those assurances. And boosters, I don't really see it for this game week, but game week 25, that's going to be your opportunity. Double game week for all Premier League sides. You've got plenty of stuff to choose from. Goal bonus, you could set up a pretty decent goal bonus team that week. Captaincy's a little bit harder that week with some of the top teams like Salah and Haaland playing tough fixtures. But Palmer, Bruno, nice fixtures in that one. 12th man could be on, like I mentioned, if you did want to bring in a player that you didn't want for game week 26, or you want to gain an edge over one of your mini league rivals by bringing in a differential. I think that could be a nice shout. And even max captain as well. It's a tough week. So City are facing Liverpool. So that's going to be tough for Salah and Haaland. But then City have also got Spurs and Liverpool have got Newcastle. So you can cover your Haaland and your Salah, but you could also cover a differential if you've got an Mbumo in your squad, a Palmer in your squad. I think you could catch a nice captaincy there as well. So game week 25, I think hold your boosters for that one if you still got them left. If you've enjoyed this so far, please do leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Quick team update, although, like I said, Liverpool-Everton still to play this evening. I'm on 53 points for the game week. This is earlier on Wednesday. 3,054 points in total, and I'm currently 70th on the overall leaderboard, although I'm expecting that to probably have a drop this evening as I have Salah, but he's not captained, and he was one of the most captained player, I think even the most captained player this game week. So expecting a bit of a drop. I was 68th last game week, so despite having a pretty tragic time yesterday, I've actually only ended up 2 places down so far. Now let me talk you through my moves. So I've done Omar Mamouche in for Isak this week. And those of you that are regular listeners know that I don't really take many punts, but this one was one that looked too good to turn down, in my opinion. I did think that it was going to start the Orient match. I was actually more certain that it was going to start Real Madrid. I thought it would start Real Madrid, and then there's a good chance that they might start him to play against Orient, maybe get his first goal, get off the mark, and then sub him off early. He actually went on to play 90 minutes against Orient, and then my confidence in him starting against Real Madrid slowly diminished. He came away with 7 points for the game week. 6 of those were scored against Orient with 3 shots on target. I didn't think he looked great, to be honest. He was getting the chances, but didn't quite finish them. So punt didn't pay off. I gave him the armband as well as a differential because I was looking at it like Salah, I'm sure he's going to just have a single against Everton, which is a fairly tough game. Haaland, single, Real Madrid, tough game. If I go Mamouche, this could be one of the last chances to get a sort of a big team. Well, I didn't know they were going to be drawn against Plymouth, but this could be a last chance for them to be drawn against a lower league opposition and play a strong side. So I thought it all made sense, but just one of them things didn't quite pay off. We'll have to wait and see how the rest of the game week goes, how badly it affects my rank, but still currently within the top 100. My other move was a straightforward one. So Gabriel had no fixture. I moved him on to Virgil van Dijk. He didn't play in the Plymouth game, but he has got Everton this evening. So I'm expecting Virgil van Dijk to be a fine long-term hold. I've seen that Trent is benched and Bradley's starting, but I'm pretty sure that I'm going to end up keeping Trent now that we know that he's pretty much close to full fitness. So he's blanked for me so far this week. I'm not expecting many points, but I think he's going to be a stay in my side. Porro just the 4. Martinez in goal. It looked like he was going to get a nice haul in that Spurs match, but conceded real late on. The only plus side is that Kulusevski picked up the assist on that one. So 10 points for Kulusevski in my midfield, but he did sort of kind of snatch away my Martinez clean sheet. Luis Diaz, I was going to rant about how disappointing he's been with that 2-pointer, but I've seen that he's also going to be starting in the match against Everton this evening. So one last chance for Luis Diaz. We'll see how he gets on, but he's got to do something big to remain in my side, I think. Bruno Fernandes, 9 points, has been consistent. And then Phil Foden, just a sub appearance in that Orient match, but then came on, a sub appearance again for Real Madrid, but he did play the bulk of the game, got 9 points and an assist. So I think I'm going to be hanging on to Bruno Foden for sure. Marmoush, I don't need to talk about anymore. He's going to be coming straight out for Erling Haaland. That's going to be a straightforward play. Haaland was always going to come back in Gameweek 24. But I just felt like it was a moment to just try and take a punt, but didn't quite pay off. And then Gakpo, Salah. I think most people have got them in their teams. Both of them haven't played yet, but playing this evening. So just hoping maybe for a Salah blank this evening, but I'm not so confident in it. Let me know how you've got on for the game week. And as always, drop a comment below if you've got any dilemmas for the weekend. Keep an eye on the Dream Team Tonic podcast. We will be doing a deadline stream or potentially earlier deadline stream, as the Friday deadline is a bit of a tough one to do a stream for, coming back from work and stuff. So leave a like, subscribe if you're not already, and head over to the Dream Team Tonic, catch our latest episode and tune in for our deadline stream. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.